Welcome to the show. Police departments from all over the United States seem to make headlines on what seems like a daily basis. But here in Washington County, we're fortunate to have the majority of our headlines be about new programs, initiatives, and better ways to make our communities safer than ever before. Here to share with us what it takes to make a safe Washington County possible, we're pleased to welcome Sheriff Doug Mullendore. Sheriff, it seems as though what's economically viable in Washington County, like roadways, runways, and railways, and Interstate 70 and 81, create tremendous problems for law enforcement that you're dealing with on an ongoing basis.
Absolutely do. And that ranges from drug transports to prostitution to many other things that are involved with the interstate transecting Washington County.
Do you find that working with your counterparts throughout the state in other areas that have a lot of major highways that you can share information that's of more benefit than maybe what somebody would be in a county like let's just say in Carroll County?
Yes, we are all the time actually interacting with our fellow partners across the state and sharing ideas and what works, what doesn't work, and we're constantly getting new ideas from other folks, and they're getting new ideas from things that we're doing as well.
So, speaking of new ideas, my understanding that Washington County is the first department to participate in the FirstNet, First Responder Network. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Certainly. As of yesterday, the Washington County Sheriff's Office became the first agency for public safety in the state of Maryland to be a part of FirstNet. FirstNet is a public safety broadband network that actually uses the old D block. It's the 14 band, which is not available to the public. But with AT&T coming on board and being the administrator of FirstNet, they're making their entire network available for public safety. And it does a number of things for us. First of all, it provides priority and preemption so that if there's a disaster and everybody's using their cell phones, public safety has the priority to be on the system and will actually still be able to communicate even though there's a wide need for that. As an example, a few years back when we had the small earthquake that we felt here in Washington County, many people were using their phones and they couldn't really make a lot of phone calls. And so this would allow public safety to still operate in the environment we need to whenever there's a disaster.
Okay. Now, with that ban that you have, it's for all emergency personnel within the community.
That's correct.
And do your phones or devices, do they operate on a regular plus that band, or is it just strictly on that band?
No, on all bands.
On all bands.
That's correct. It's just an addition of a band to our devices.
Okay, so the system knows naturally to roll over to this special band if the traffic is high.
That's correct.
Okay.
And it's voice and data. It's not just voice or data. It's both.
Now, bringing with what Ken and
Henry.
I know, with what Ken and Henry have to say, how does this all interface? Because years ago, you could have where you couldn't talk to another branch of government. 9/11 was a prime example. I'm sure other times now you don't hear as much where people can't talk to each other because of the volume of information that's being passed out, the amount of people that are talking, and the inability to talk to one another to disperse information. Mm-hmm. So with what we're talking about now, has that been corrected?
It has been, both on a land mobile, and I'll give you an example. I was meeting with a vendor for a radio system just on Monday, and they are already producing radios, voice radios, the same as we use on a daily basis, that has LTE environment in it. So you could be standing in Texas and talk to our communication center or to any of the individuals in our community by that radio just because of the FirstNet system.
In my car, there is a device that if I'm in an accident, probably OnStar and different ones have it, where if you're in an accident, a voice from Texas will come on and talk to you, call local law enforcement, an ambulance to get them on scene. Is that something like what we're talking about?
It's similar, except that that uses satellite technology, and FirstNet will be using satellite technology as well. You know, it's in its infancy stages, so there's a lot of equipment that needs to be built specifically for FirstNet that will allow us to take full advantage of what is being offered today.
So speaking of new equipment, can you give us a little bit of an update on the county's riot gear purchase?
Sure. We purchased riot gear right after the Baltimore issue with the crowd control they had down there. And we've
Was that the Freddie Gray riots?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And some of our personnel, our tactical team, the city's civil defense unit was down there. Since that time, we have actually merged with the city and have a 40-man team for civil disturbances, fully equipped. All of our personnel are now equipped to be able to handle those types of situations. What happened in Baltimore in the early stages of that civil disorder was that they had brought in organizations from Montgomery, PG, and a couple of surrounding jurisdictions. However, they could not deploy gas or any of the other techniques because the officers in Baltimore did not have that equipment. It demonstrated the need for having that on an ongoing basis because you just never know. We had a situation where we had a significant protest here in the city of Hagerstown, and we participated with the city of Hagerstown on standby in case we were needed, but fortunately it was a very peaceful protest and it wasn't needed. But that's not to say tomorrow, the next day, or next year that something doesn't arise that creates a civil disturbance.
Now, on the same thought, is this equipment, is this in every patrol car that's in the county, or is it select on how it's
No, every
made
sheriff's
available?
deputy has that equipment.
Okay, okay, makes sense.
Let's go over to your opioid issue. At what point, everything seems like it's pushed on law enforcement. Come on, it's not just law enforcement. There's $9 million pills that went to Kermit, West Virginia, didn't get there, wasn't transported there by law enforcement. When are hospitals, pharmacists, and the providers, the major manufacturers of opioids, when are they brought into the equation and help reimburse you for the cost that you put into fighting this issue and the city? When does that begin to happen? At what time do the multi-million, billions of dollars that's made by these people, where some of it's extracted back, that the taxpayers don't have to continue to pay for it, that the providers of the pills start paying for it?
Well, I wish I could answer that for you, Ron, if I could.
Is anybody willing to talk about it?
Yes, actually, when the governor had his opioid summit here in Washington County, there were a number of people that actually talked about that very situation. It's unfortunate, but a lot of and I've talked to physicians about this, and if you saw recently, they're starting to relax now the regulations on medical facilities and physicians, where they guaranteed that their patients wouldn't have pain. And so in order to guarantee that, they started out at the top level. So they were issuing the Percocets, the Oxycontins, and so forth, but there was little follow-up on managing that. So if you had a shoulder injury, for example, and you had surgery for that and you were given Oxycontin or Percocet, and let's say there was something that didn't go quite right and you had to extend your time on that, you just continued with the prescription for the opioid. And over a period of time, you didn't realize that you were becoming addicted. Now all of a sudden you're healed, physician says you are now healed, you don't get any more prescriptions. Now is when you realize that you have a problem. And with some of the things that have been put in place, it kind of makes it more difficult for you to get those medications on the black market. So what do? You turn to the heroin. and which is cheaper to get. And so that's really how a lot of people get involved in the addiction in the first place.
Well, Sheriff, time's up in this block, but I'm sure you're willing to stay for another block to continue our discussion, because it is interesting and there's a lot going on that a lot of people really are searching for answers. So again, stay tuned. We'll be back in 3 minutes with another block with Sheriff Mullendore for his session of where we are in Washington County and in the tri-state area.